This fake head saved thousands of lives during World War I, and today I'm going to show you exactly how soldiers use this bizarre invention to outsmart the deadliest snipers in history. But before I explain how this worked, you need to understand just how terrifying snipers were in the trenches. Imagine being stuck in a muddy ditch, and the moment you lift your head even an inch above the edge, bang, you're dead. Let me take you back to 1914. When World War I began, something changed warfare forever. For the first time in history, rifles were equipped with telescopic sights on a massive scale. The Germans were the first to figure this out. They equipped their best marksmen with scoped rifles, and the results were devastating. A single German sniper could kill dozens of Allied soldiers in a single day. Picture this. You're a British soldier in 1915. You're exhausted, hungry, and you haven't seen sunlight in days. Your trench is barely 3 feet wide. And somewhere out there, hidden in the landscape, is a German sniper waiting for you to make one mistake. The problem was, you couldn't see them. German snipers were masters of camouflage. They would hide in trees, in rubble, in specially built hides that were invisible from 100 yards away. And when British and French commanders realized what was happening, they had a massive problem. Their soldiers were dying, and they couldn't even see who was killing them. Something had to change. So soldiers started developing survival tactics. Never look over the same spot twice. Never establish a routine. Never expose yourself for more than a second. But even with all these precautions, men were still dying every single day. That's when British intelligence officers came up with something absolutely brilliant. They thought, what if we give the snipers something to shoot at? Something that looks like a soldier but isn't. Enter the camouflage units. These were special teams, made up of artists, sculptors, and craftsmen who worked behind the front lines. Their job? To create the most realistic fake human heads ever made. They used papier-mâché, basically chopped paper mixed with glue, because it was cheap, lightweight, and incredibly easy to mold into realistic shapes. Now, I actually tried making one of these myself, and let me tell you, it's harder than it looks. Watch this. The sculptors working in those WWI workshops had to make these heads look absolutely perfect. We're talking realistic skin tones, individual facial features, even stubble and wrinkles. And here's the crazy part. Some of these heads were so realistic they even added glass eyes. Real glass eyes, like you'd find in a doll or taxidermy. But wait, it gets even better. Some of these heads had a special feature that made them incredibly convincing. They installed rubber surgical tubes connected to a cigarette in the dummy's mouth. An operator could blow air through the tube, and from a distance, it would look exactly like a soldier smoking a cigarette. Think about it from the sniper's perspective. You're looking through your scope for hours, waiting. Then you see what looks like a careless soldier taking a smoke break. You take that shot immediately. So here's how it actually worked in the field. A soldier would take this dummy head, attach it to a long pole, usually about 6 to 8 feet long, and very carefully raise it above the trench parapet. And then they waited, sometimes for hours. The key was patience. They needed the enemy sniper to believe this was a real target. And then, crack! A bullet tears through the dummy's head. But here's the genius part. That bullet hole is exactly what they needed. Now they could use something called triangulation. By carefully examining the angle of the bullet hole and knowing where the dummy was positioned, they could calculate the approximate location of the enemy sniper. Some units even installed periscopes inside the dummy heads. So, while the head was above the trench, an observer could look through the periscope and spot the muzzle flash when the sniper fired. Once they had the sniper's position, they had 2 options. Option 1. Call in artillery and blast that entire area. Option 2. Send in their own counter-snipers to take him out. And believe me, once they called in the artillery, that sniper's position would be obliterated within minutes. Now, here's what's really fascinating. They made dozens of different versions. They had heads with different hats, different facial features, different expressions. Some looked scared, some looked confident. This is an actual photograph from the Imperial War Museum showing British soldiers with their dummy heads. Look how realistic these are. And remember, this is 1916 technology. The sculptors who made these weren't just craftsmen. They were artists. Every wrinkle, every pore, every detail had to be perfect because German snipers were looking at these through magnified scopes. They mixed custom paint colors to match different skin tones. They studied real soldiers' faces. They even added fake bloodstains and dirt to make them look like they'd been in the trenches for weeks. And it worked, incredibly well. Units using these decoys reported significant drops in casualties. German snipers were wasting ammunition on fake targets, and, more importantly, revealing their positions. Thanks for watching. If you learned something new today, consider subscribing. These stories deserve to be remembered. I'll see you in the next one.